Hi friends, and welcome to another Workbook Wednesday. Today we are going to draw this really cute little mermaid, and I'm going to teach you how to draw the different sea creatures and under the sea elements in the picture. So first and foremost, I am drawing on a canvas that is 8.5 by 11 with 300 DPI. You always want to have your DPI or your dots per inch on the higher end so that when you export this, it doesn't get pixelated. And you can adjust that in your settings. So now that I've got my canvas set up, I'm going to do a first layer that is just a sketch layer, and I'm going to use my 6B pencil. What I did with this pencil is I went into the brush properties by tapping on it, and I actually increased the maximum size so that I could use this for a textured coloring tool as well. So you can go ahead and adjust your maximum size to whatever you see fit so that you can go bigger or smaller depending on your preference. With these sizes adjusted, you want to have a decent, almost like a pencil's width for your sketch, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So the very first step is to just draw her head. Oops. I think I'm just pressing too hard. Yes, okay, so we're just gonna draw an oval for her head. And again, if you hold the oval once you're finished drawing it, it'll bring up your shape options so that you can adjust and make it a perfectly round shape. From there, and you'll notice I do a lot of this when I'm drawing just because it helps to orient my hand better to what I'm drawing. Sorry in advance. Then we're gonna add another smaller oval as her ear. The next step is we're gonna start with the parted side of her hair that's gonna tuck behind this ear. So I'm just starting kind of at the middle of the oval here and making an arc that goes down towards the ear. Then I'm gonna come a little bit above where that face is, and I'm gonna do the same shape flipped for the top part of the hair. Then we're just gonna repeat this shape on the other side, but it's gonna come to a point instead of being tucked behind an ear. Oops. And so you wanna start up at that same point here for both sides. And you want them to line up pretty closely. You can also, if you didn't want to do the hairstyle that we've got here, you can totally change this up. If you wanted to do curlier hair, you could totally do that. If you wanted to do kind of like space buns or something else, those are things that you can do on your own for sure. I'm just doing the long, curly, stereotypical mermaid hair for our sample. And then maybe later on, if there is interest, I will do some doodles with other hairstyles as well. Like I said, this is all just to get you started with being comfortable with drawing and knowing how to create things out of shapes. So never feel like you have to follow it exactly. For our next step, we're gonna add another layer and we're gonna add a guide to help us draw the face. And this guide is going to be just like a T or a plus sign right across the center of that face. And you want it to be as straight as possible. And then we're gonna go back into our first layer with our sketch, and we're gonna add the face details. So what I like to do is put the eyes right on, oops, I still had the opacity down there. The eyes right on that line, and I'm just doing, oops, make them a little closer. I learned how to draw this last night, so we are doing it together. And when I say I learned how to draw it, I taught myself so that we could do it together. So if you're ever watching these, kind of like when you were watching my chunky deer video and you're like, Sam, what are you doing? I'm winging it, just bear with me. Okay, and then we're gonna put the nose and the mouth on that center line, and I'm just doing little, almost like close parentheses or C shapes. I did add in eyelashes. I was inspired by Jamie of Jamie Creates, who did one of my tutorials for an elephant and a fox, and she added the cutest eyelashes, and I just had to do some myself. Our next step is we're going to turn off that guide layer now that we've got everything kind of in place, and we are going to give a little bit more definition to this face. So you can do this however you like. I like to bring the one side out more like a cheekbone and then come down here and give just a little bit more of a rounded chin, or a defined chin, I suppose. It doesn't have to be super defined. I personally don't have a very defined chin, and my brother has made fun of me for it my entire life. So I'm a little bit sensitive, and I want our little mermaid to have a defined chin. And if you're looking at this and you're like, man, her eyes are a little too close together, that's when the selection tool comes in handy. You click on it, have it set on freehand, click on the cursor, and then you can adjust as needed. Again, this is all to your preference and whatever you feel looks best. And this is our sketch layer, so you can always change it as you keep going. Our next step is going to be adding the neck, which is just 2 vertical lines, and shoulders, which we're just going to start by doing a little slope. From here, we're actually going to start drawing her seashells, and I'm just going to zoom in to give you a little bit of an idea. Our seashells are made up of 2 triangles and a squiggle. And you can do this as exaggerated or as simplified as you like, but it's really just taking these simple shapes and adjusting them so that they fit with what you're going for. So again, it's a squiggle for the scalloped portion, and it comes down into that point, and then we've got the little offshoot, like the bottom of that seashell. And then what we can do is we can use our selection tool, draw around that, use 3 fingers to swipe down, and then press duplicate. Then we can come down here and flip horizontal and line up our seashell to make our seashell bra for our mermaid. And you can angle these differently if you'd like. I just thought it was kind of fun having them line up together. You can also do different kinds of shells, or you could do even a bathing suit top, whatever you think fits your mermaid best. Okay, then we're gonna draw in the arms, and this is something that sounds more complicated than it is. Basically, we're going to do the arms and the torso, but it's all made out of angles. So for this mermaid, her hands are kind of like on her hips, and if you want to have her holding something, she absolutely can, but we're just going with that almost like greater than and less than signs for those arms. So I'm just going to sketch out the outside and then the inside of those arms. Okay, and you can kind of round out the elbow as needed. And she is still looking a little funky, but we'll get there. The next step is we're going to add in her torso. So this actually can probably be moved up a little bit. There we go. And again, this is my, 3rd time ever drawing this mermaid, so we're learning together, and I'm okay with that. And if you all like these more intricate doodles, let me know, and we'll do those more frequently as well. Okay, so we've got her torso, which does not have to be a dramatic V shape like that was. And then we're just going to add in this little oval that's kind of curved up at the sides for the top of her fin. The next step is we're going to draw the tail, and it's going to be made up of an upside down teardrop and then a pointed oval, which is like almost like a football shape. So first we're going to draw that. First I'm going to move her up a little bit and make her a little bit smaller so that I don't go off my page. That's also a wonderful thing about digital art, is you can make those adjustments. Okay, so we're gonna draw that teardrop shape, and then that football. I mean, it's a little bit pointier than a football, but you know, just giving you the general idea. I don't know what that shape would be called otherwise. Okay, so then our next step is going to be just to kind of firm up this outline a little bit, and you can kind of round it out a little bit more. All right, and then we're going to repeat that football shape twice to give you those fins on the end of the tail. Oops. And they can overlap a little bit. When you do your outline, you'll just ignore the overlap and just outline the outside of them. And you can change this. You can have the fin go more vertically. You can have it go to the other side. You can have it go straight down. It's all about what vibes with you in that moment. Okay. Next, we are going to fill in her hair. And the reason I didn't do this after we did the head was because you're going to draw her body in front of it, and it just would have been a lot of erasing. So I'm going to start at this point here where this kind of like bang piece connects, and draw like a little arc going towards her back. Then I'm going to come over here and kind of continue this curve down, and we're gonna add some spirals. And the reason I added spirals was because she's underwater, and I just thought that would be like a cute little element. And in the workbook, I think I've got 3, but in the cover page, I've got 4. It just depends on how small you make them. The one at the bottom is a little bit smaller. Okay, so then our next step is to draw hands. Hands are horrible and everyone hates them, but you don't have to. So they can be pretty straightforward. They are just 5 sausage shapes, essentially, on a hand. And so we're gonna come in, and the thumb and the pinky are always the shortest. And in this position, the thumbs are closest to her body. So we're gonna come down here and just draw 4, 5, her hands. And again, this is just our sketch layer, so it does not have to be perfect. Oops, and then this, we're gonna thin those out a little bit, because she doesn't need to have giant hands. Okay, so in the cover, I have her holding a jellyfish. You can put whatever you want there, or you can just have her holding her hands on her hips. Now, the more I look at this, I think this part needs to be just a little bit bigger. And so what I'm gonna do is actually you know what, I'm just gonna move this over a tiny bit and then come in here and just make it a little bit bigger, and that way we'll do that, and then I'll adjust these lines. That way she's a little bit more proportional. And again, it's our sketch layer, so who cares if you have a lot of sketch lines? Not me, because we're gonna go over it and finish it up and make it look really pretty. Okay, back to our instructions. We're gonna go into the hair and add some texture. What I like to do is just add some lines that follow the shapes. So this would follow that arc. This would follow the swirl, and we would meet up with the like the points here, and just fill in all those areas so that it looks like her hair is flowing. Then we are going to figure out if we want to add texture to the fin and the tail. For this, you can do scales a whole bunch of different ways. A really easy one is to just do a pattern of offset U's essentially, and you just repeat that until the entire thing is filled in. I think at one point I made myself a brush that did this. But I can't remember. Oh, here it is. I did. It's not like exact or anything. It's just to give you an idea. And then I would obviously turn it for that side piece to go up the tail. Since it's our sketch layer, I'm just doing that to give you a general idea of the design that you could put on it. And then once I do the inking, I'll go back through and do all of it. We're also going to add some tail lines to the fin, similar to the hair. Then from here, you can go in and add any other details that you want to add to your mermaid. I'm going to move her nose and her mouth up just a teeny tiny bit. Make this a little bit more curved. Add some lines on that seashell and give her a pearl necklace. This isn't in the workbook. This is something that you can just look at her and decide if you think she needs anything. You can also go in and kind of firm out where her ear is. And then you've got the sketch for your mermaid. So what I always do for my sketch layer is turn down the opacity, create a new layer, and then go over the lines that I want to keep. For my pretty mermaid, we're gonna actually use the same brush, the 6B pencil, because I want to give texture. And this is something that's new to me. I am giving a shout out to Jamie, one of our lovely admins, who always does really cool texture in her pieces, and I want to be like that. So we're giving it a go. It's something that usually I'm very much of a perfectionist, and these like little texture ridges would drive me crazy. But I actually really like the look of it. I just have never experimented with it before. So we're gonna do that today. And there's a whole variety, like the whole sketch section is really good for that. And then you can also come down to texture. There's grunge is one that Jamie really likes when she's coloring things in. So definitely explore the free brushes that come with Procreate before you go around buying them, because it does have a really great variety, and you can learn to love the ones that are included without spending any extra money. Not saying that brushes out there aren't worth money, just saying get comfortable with the ones you have before you go crazy buying them. Okay, I think my blush should just be a little bit further away. And then we're gonna get into outlining everything else. And I know that doing your sketch line first might seem a little tedious for you, but let's be real. I've designed over 100 stickers and over 400 laser files, and I still have to sketch things out. It's okay. If it takes you a little longer, that's fine. It's just getting you comfortable and knowing what to do. And you know, we can be like Bob Ross here. There are only happy accidents, and the more comfortable you get with your programs, the easier it will be for you to branch out and do things on your own, and to do things like change up the hair, or, you know, come up with an entirely different outfit, or take this mermaid and bring her into a princess dress. You know, it's all about your level of comfort and getting you familiar with these tools. I want you to be as successful at drawing, and I know that with a little bit of practice, just putting in the work, you can do anything you put your mind to. And it sounds cheesy as hell, but it's true, because I did the same thing. I started out not knowing how to use these programs, and look what I've done with them. I want you to be just as comfortable, and I want you to be able to ask questions in this group so that we can teach you all the skills without the like hard part of figuring it out on your own. So if you're ever watching these and there are things you want me to touch on, leave me a comment. I don't bite, and I very much enjoy this part of the process. I think the teaching, as silly as it is the part I enjoy the most, because it lets me show you my thought process behind everything, and I get to really like dive in deep, no pun intended, since we're drawing a mermaid. Ha ha ha. Also, I'm trying to let my personality show a little bit more, because Erin made a comment earlier about having scripted videos versus letting your personality shine. And I think she made a great point that, you know what, we want people to be here because they vibe with us, you know, not because I have a script that I've practiced saying 100 times. I want you all to get to know me as I'm, you know, putting myself out here for you and creating these things. And I hope that if you're a member of my group, or if we're friends on socials, that, you know, I get to know you as well. That's my little monologue for the day, I suppose. All right, so this is where we are now. And you'll notice it's not the exact same every time I draw it. A whopping 3 times so far. But the more comfortable you get, like the closer your designs will be once you're like, okay, I've totally got this, versus your first attempt. I mean, just think about something that, you know, you tried for the first time. When I tried icing a cake, Josh and I did a video that's on my YouTube channel, and it was creating a geode cake. And while the cake was delicious, it was definitely not the prettiest cake I've seen. And we did not quite knock it out of the park with that. Or the time we attempted a mirror glaze, or the time that I decided I wanted to learn to crochet a blanket, and I got on a plane on the way home from California, and John is sitting there shivering because the air conditioning was so strong, and he's like, Sam, crochet faster. And it ended up being a blanket I gave to the cat because I couldn't get past the lap size to actually finish it. So starting something new, learning Procreate, learning how to draw these things, learning, you know, what shapes make up a face and what shapes make up hair. It all, you start at the beginning, and you can't expect to be a pro right away. I mean, I've been designing laser files for almost 2 years now, or I guess, yeah, has it almost been 3 years? I started in 2020, so this summer it'll be 3 years. And there are things that I know now that I had no idea when I first started. So give yourself grace and be kind to yourself as you learn these things, because you will get better with time, and you can't expect to be a pro on your very first attempt. All right, so here is our cute little mermaid, and I'm going to show you some of these characters. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to draw them around her, but if you wanted to put, actually, you know what? Let's put the jellyfish. We're going to create another layer, and we're actually going to put him up here just so that you can see what I'm doing, and then we're going to move him, or her. So we're going to start with an arch, or they. We are inclusive in this space. And if you aren't, you don't need to be in this group. Okay, sorry, not getting sidetracked. Our arch, then the same squiggle that we put on our seashells. Then we're going to just draw tentacles, and it's just a curve. Then you repeat the curve, and then you just do that as many times as you can fit. They can go in any direction. And there is your jellyfish tentacles. And then we just add a face, and I'm gonna do the same, oops, little eyelashes, cheeks. And this is my style lately, is I've been adding, you know, cheeks and cute little faces to everything. And then we're gonna actually move this layer right over where her hands are. And I'm gonna lower the opacity, and you can do that by opening your layers menu, tapping with 2 fingers and sliding to the left. Then I'm gonna go on to my mermaid, and I'm duplicating it, turning off the original. That way, if you mess up, you still have it and you can go back to it. And then coming in here and erasing out anywhere that the jellyfish is, essentially. So the hardest part is going to be the tentacles, and you can lower the opacity of this too if it helps you. And continue erasing. Oops. But one thing you want to keep is the hands. So we're going to erase the jellyfish where the hands go over top. And then I'm just going to draw that line back in. Okay. Because the hands are holding the jellyfish, and the jellyfish is over top of the mermaid. I hope that makes sense. So then we're going to turn our opacities back up, and then make any edits that we have to make for those hands, and then we'll get into the tentacles. Okay, and I'm going to turn the mermaid back down. And playing with your opacity levels is actually really helpful in my opinion, because it can help you see things that you might not have seen otherwise. You can also do some really cool effects with it, but since this is more of like a coloring book style, storybook style, we're not gonna play with that right now. But we can do that in a future lesson if that's something that you all would want to see. I'm also totally fine doing a live if you ever want to do like a Let's Draw Together class. And just leave me a comment and let me know if that's something you'd want to do. Okay, so there's the jellyfish over top of our mermaid scales. And then what we're going to do is add another layer and draw in some of our buddies here. So for the fish, we're going to start with an oval, and then we're going to draw a triangle. And it's going to look nuts, but just trust me. We're going to draw another smaller triangle towards the back, and then we're going to add another layer on top. And on this layer, we are going to firm out our outline. And by that, I mean we're just turning it into what can be recognized as a fish. I added that same squiggle to the back that we did on our scallop seashells. We're going to turn off our triangle layer there, and then we're going to add some squiggles. This is the same as the jellyfish legs. And then we're just going to add a face with that cheek, and you can erase out if it goes over your squiggle. And then last but not least, we're going to add a mouth. And so the mouth is just like if we were adding an oval there, and it just comes right off of that outline. And so I know that this looks a little bit funky just because I did draw so hard on the outline. But it matches with the rest of it once you zoom out. So that's a little bit of a chubbier fish. You can exaggerate these a little bit more if you want to. But again, it's all personal preference. So it's more like an angelfish kind of style. And then we're going to add another layer. And the reason we're doing multiple layers is so that you can move the elements around as needed. And we're going to draw some bubbles. So the bubbles are the easiest. You just draw a circle and you can hold it to make that perfect circle shape. And then we're just drawing a semicolon as the highlight. And so you can make that a little darker on the outline if you wanted. And you can even duplicate and resize so that you have multiple bubbles in that same style. And you can put those all around, and you can flip them, rotate them, make them bigger or smaller, just to fill some negative space. And then I'm gonna merge all my bubbles together just because that way I can move them in like segments. Next, I'm gonna show you the little crab. So we're gonna come down here and we're gonna start with an oval again, and we're gonna turn him into a football, essentially. So we're gonna take those edges and point them out, but in like a curved way. And you can like exaggerate this if you want to. And then we're just gonna get rid of that connecting line. And you can do this on multiple layers if that helps you. You don't have to. The good thing about using like a sketchy texture brush is that sketchy texture is okay. Next, we're gonna, add a claw. So you start with 2 little arms, or 2 little lines for his arm, and then a fortune cookie shape. And you can round it out a little more so that it's like a cartoony U. And do that on both sides. And then we're just gonna add legs. For the legs, I'm just doing a little bit of an angle here with a point at the end. And then you're gonna come in and add your face. You don't have to do eyelashes, you don't have to do the blush. I like them, so I will. Okay, so then I'm just gonna show you how to do the seaweed, and then you're pretty much done. You're ready to color, you're ready to, if you wanted to turn it into an engraving file, you could do that. If you want to turn it into a sticker design or a t-shirt design or whatever, you've now drawn something from start to finish, and you should be so proud of yourself. For the seaweed, you start with just a squiggle, and then you repeat that squiggle, and then you just add some texture lines like we did for the hair, and you do that wherever you want, however many you want. They can be more or less curved. They can come down from the top. They can overlap things. They can overlap your bubbles, your fish, your mermaid, whatever you see fit. And that's another reason that we're doing different layers, because then you can go back into your other layers and erase out anything that's overlapped without messing up your design. Oops. So anywhere it overlaps on the mermaid, anywhere it overlaps on our little fishy, anywhere that overlaps on our bubbles. Oops. And then there is your finished underwater ocean scene. If you want to add a starfish, I didn't include those. They're pretty simple. You can do the same thing where you hold the circle and just do a star shape and then hold it and then click edit polyline, and it'll let you change that shape. And so you can make it as exaggerated or as, chunky as you want. And then what I do is I just put the face in. And you can add some, I think they're called like suction cups, onto your little starfish. And then you can decide, hey, where should I put it? And I'm gonna say the starfish is gonna hang out down here in the seaweed. So we can go into the seaweed and just erase that line so the starfish is over top of it. And there is a really cute mermaid scene. It's underwater, it's got detail, it's got fun friends. You're gonna be drawing things on your own in no time. Thanks for joining. I know this one was a little longer than usual, but we had a special request for it. And I think it turned out pretty cute. I am gonna turn her into a laser file as well, so you can keep your eyes peeled for that.